you catch Rick and Gustafson's comment that she wished they never used the term exposure?
Yeah.
What would you
Now that you think, when you think about it, I agree.
The word
We are live streaming, by the way, right now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a comment that she made at part of the liaison meeting. I don't remember to throw it to the report, but that real importance of vocabulary.
There you go, Susan. We're live.
The word.
Welcome. Okay, we're operational.
We're operational, and our boardroom clock is that couple of minutes slow, so we will call the meeting, regular meeting of Monday, January the 25th to order at 6:30 p.m. And I'm going to do roll call for the benefit of those individuals that are joining us by live stream, so you know who our trustees are. And we do have trustees present in the boardroom, as well as trustees on our joining by Zoom. And we also have our interim secretary treasurer and our executive assistant with us tonight on Zoom. And our executive assistant is taking minutes via Zoom. So if you see us, give her some pause to catch up with us. That's what it's all about. So we'll do roll call first of all. Area 1,
Mylan Wayman.
Area 2,
Trustee Scott Moncrief.
you. Area 3,
Trustee Nicole Gillis.
Area 4,
Trustee Ida Campbell.
Area 5, Trustee Helen Gilbert.
Area 5, Trustee Bill Snow.
Area 5, Trustee Erin Evans.
So I'd like to acknowledge that today's meeting is being held within the traditional territory of the Denizah and Treaty 8. Our first item of business is to take a look at our agenda. Can I have a mover and seconder related to the agenda? Moved by Aaron, seconded by David. Are there any additions to this agenda? Just a reminder that as we are live streamed in the public comment section, which comes as item 17.0, questions from the press and public. If you send those in to our superintendent, Mr. Petrucci, he will bring them forward in the meeting at the appropriate time. I don't see any other additions to our agenda, so calling the question, all in favor? Carried. We do not have any presentations or delegations, so we will move into trustee input and celebrations, and I'll start with our Area 4 representative, Ida Campbell.
Yes, in the past week I attended a PAC meeting in Taylor, and they're struggling with getting new parents in because of the COVID situation, and parents aren't used to being in school. But they did report that one of the pizza place in Taylor is donating once a month a piece of pizza for every child in that school. So they want to send out congratulations to them. And that was the only thing that I have done. I have an AGM to go to on Thursday here with Ellen, and that's all I have for this month.
Area 5 representative, Trustee Evans.
What did I do? It's been a while. I attended some of the virtual holiday celebrations for some of the schools. that was really neat to see those. And the policy committee meeting last week. And that's, well, it's next month, so, but before the next meeting, I will be attending the BCSTA.
Trustee Gillis from Area 3.
I don't think I really have any new trustee input this time.
Thank you. Vice Chair Madeline Lehman.
Well, other than the policy committee, I also actually attended my first labor management meeting. I've been told it was the shortest in history.
Thank you, Terry.
Sounds like
It was good. It also means that there's no problems or issues, so that's good. And yeah, just getting back into the groove after Christmas.
Area 2, Trustee Scott Moncrief.
I've been in contact with all of my administrators. Each school is having its own issues, but all very minor. Everything's going nice and smooth. So that is my report.
Trustee Snow, Area 5.
Alrighty, I've been out visiting a fair amount. I went over to the high school and twice in the past month or so. The EC, I took a trip down there, see how it was going on. Ambrose, I took 2 visits over there. I went in an outing out there for a celebration. And I went to the tree decorating that Ann Roberts Young did at Peace Lutheran.
That's right. Okay, thank you very much. So I've done a few things. The concerts and activities that closed the year out, I quite enjoyed, and I found when I was a little blue at times over the holidays, I would look at a Christmas concert and it kept me right up. I've been to PAC meetings for 3 of the 4 schools that I'm liaison for, with the 4th one coming up this Thursday. I sent you the minutes or the notes that I took from the board chair call with the new Minister of Education, Mr. Whiteside. She reviewed her mandate letter, and it was very clear from her conversation, both at this and the partner liaison meeting, that she truly believes in the importance of governance and a good working relationship with the BCSTA. So that was nice to see. Ann Roberts Young, one of their celebrations is the posting of the 3 parts to their opening ceremony, and that is now on their website. Stephen does mention in his report, there is a special thanks though to Russell Eagleson from Sounds Around Town, because he ended up producing the videos that are captured there online free for us. So that was really nice. I have a thank you, couple of things. I'll start with this picture that in my report I put under community support. And as we caught wind of at the last meeting, the legacy funding grants for the BC Winter Games were assigned. And we as a district were a partner in those games, hence the plaque on the wall. And there was an awful lot of work, effort, and energy that we put into it. And in the legacy funding, it is the largest legacy funding of any Winter Games to a community, and that is because of the kind of community support we had here. And I know that there was a number of schools and CACs and things that put in requests. The only district request that came through legacy funding is to the track project of Burt Bowes, and it was $100,000. And I believe Curtis Whitford, who is in the picture, and Guylaine Cornell was to be there for the check presentation, and I think that might be Jason hiding there behind the mask. That took place in the new area down in Centennial Park, a check presentation the other night. So I had a long conversation with Curtis to just be able to speak to where we're at with this project. And I think they're about $8,000 short of having the money at this point to pave the track. That is not the end of Curtis's vision though, and he is quite adamant that he's going to get the whole thing in, where he brings it forward, where he's looking to have the lines painted on the track. And if any of you have ever lined a track for a district track meet, it is a huge amount of work. Having a company that specializes in that coming and painting the lines on the surface so that they would be permanent. As well, he has some thoughts related to signage, and I need to go back and look at policy and have a conversation further with district staff related to signage when the project is complete. And then also, he's got some thoughts related to bleachers, so I'll come back with that. So that is quite exciting for us. I do think when you look at the spirit of the games, that it was a good choice for that big chunk of change, because even the day we went down and took a picture with our Be Kind t-shirts, there's people walking and using it, and it's got a lot of potential for not just all the schools in the school district to use, but also for community use. Another one of my celebrations is this particular graphic. I do not know which of our staff is responsible for it, but I'm sure Stephen will be able to find out and pass on. I think the graphic really adds to public understanding of the importance of timely registration for us, and it continues to make people aware of our district budget and some of the planning cycles. So I just wanted to say kudos and thank you to whoever put that together, because Mr. Bell? Okay. So, and then the next piece that I wanted to say thank you for, and I know that it was Jared that worked with Northern River Midstream, Lacey, who's one of my former students, on a press release. And Jared put together the pictures, he collected quotes. And what I really like about this particular press release is I like the inclusion of the student voice in the pictures, because they're going to be the ones playing on that playground. And it was quite exciting to see some of their comments and lots of different ideas related to the playground there in that press release. I have participated in one partner liaison meeting, and that includes people from the Ministry of Education, the school trustees, and the Superintendent's Association. There was 135 people on that call. It's apparently partner liaison meetings are something that are a recent addition to events that the ministry supports. And in the past, it would have been a go down to Vancouver thing. Well, this time what they've done is we've got 2 mornings of Zoom. So we've done one, and then we have a second one on February the 5th. So when that is done, I will bring a report back to you and information. There was some really good pro-D as part of it. There was, yeah, just lots to think about. And I will echo Trustee Lehman's comments about the quick and timely labor management meeting, but there was a degree of we're glad to be back, we're doing what we need to do, and things are going well, reflected in that meeting. That was nice to see. So that's all I have to say. Okay. Moving on from trustee input, 5.0 on our agenda, minutes of the regular board meeting of December 14th, 2020, and it is pages 6 to 11 in your package. I'll give you a couple minutes to look at those minutes. Please have a mover and a seconder in relationships. Moved by Madeline, seconded by Ida. And are there any errors or omissions in those minutes? Okay,
Leah wasn't here to, wasn't sure. No. The financial disclosures, you were supposed to bring them.
I thought Leah said she had them from everybody. I checked with her.
Yes, thumbs up.
She's giving us a thumbs up. Yeah. The financial disclosure. I think you did it at that first meeting when she handed them to us.
I'll have to check.
Okay, all right. But I think they're done, so. Calling the question then, all in favor? Business arising from the minutes? Any business comes in reports and later on, so we don't need to do anything. Okay, moving on to 6.0, approval of the excerpts of the regular board meeting of November 16th, 2020. And that is page 12 in your agenda package. And I have a mover and a seconder, moved by Aaron, seconded by Bill. Are there any errors or omissions? Sweet. Calling the question, all in favor? Moving on to 7.0, announcements and reminders. Do we have any additions and changes?
Helen?
Yep.
February 23rd, it just has Trustee Snow's name on the SUPAC. That's reading week for me. I can attend that SUPAC if you need a second trustee.
That would be wonderful. And
It'd be wonderful.
anything else to add to our calendar? Ida?
I'll just say that the BCPC AGM, Helen and I are going to be in the boardroom attending this virtually if anyone wants to join. And it starts at 9 Vancouver time, so that's 10 our time.
Right. Then the partner liaison meetings aren't on there, but I didn't know whether they needed to be or not, so I'll just report back on it. Right. Moving on to 8.0, senior staff report. We'll ask Stephen to give his report, page 13 in your agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so a number of items here this evening. As Trustee Gilbert mentioned, Ann Roberts-Young are very pleased to sort of finally have their video up on their website. So you can find it in the regular website, but there's also a link here in the superintendent's report. Heading into our framework for enhancing student learning. Under intellectual development, I'm just wanting to keep the board apprised of how our learning support model is going in the district. This was sort of year one, and it'll take probably a few years to completely implement the plan. And what you're looking at there in this circle graph, the donut graph, I guess they call it, is an example of how resources are being allocated in terms of the specific learning support budget that we provide to schools. You'll remember that some of this funding comes from our 1701 special education designation budgets. So what you'll notice is that the vast majority of the funds are still being used for educational assistance support and in much needed cases. Many of our students still need elbow-to-elbow support, and that support is being provided. However, what you will also notice is that we're starting to see other types of allocations and services being provided depending on the needs of the class and the school, because it's more of a universal approach to this need. And so you'll start to see things like teacher time, youth care worker time, coaching and collaboration, and supplies. So we're hoping over time to see this donut expand in terms of the variety of interventions and resources that are being used at each location, and it's going very well. As I mentioned, the vast majority is towards education assistance support, and there are other ways that the funding is used, and you can read through those. I'll just mention here a model. It is a model that is responsive to the emerging needs of the class and school based on class and school based on class reviews. So it can in fact evolve throughout the year as the needs change. Moving ahead here, just to remind the public and trustees of the ongoing sort of training of our teachers through professional development. These are Poppy workshops for teachers. And you can click on those links or those posters to find out a bit more about some of the training that our teachers are receiving. And this is particularly from the early learning perspective. Under human and social development, I'm providing the board here with an update, a bit of a reminder of a fund, a special purpose fund that we received from the government called, the provincial government called Community Link. And Director Carleen Andrews has laid out here what the nature of this fund is and how School District 60 are deploying these funds primarily for the benefit of our vulnerable students. So you can read through there some of the staffing that is involved in that, some of the meals and the food that is provided. Another example here of human and social development, there was an assembly at Margaret Murray Community School, and as part of that assembly, Major Ryan Salisbury from the 3rd Battalion of the Royal Canadian Regiment out of Petawawa, but he was overseas, zoomed into their assembly, thanking the students for the Christmas cards. But what was also neat is that he took the opportunity to give a bit of a geography and history lesson to the students. So that was incorporated into their program. Under career and skill development, trustees and public can read about a couple of opportunities that some schools will take advantage of. There are also opportunities for parents at home to plug into some of these programs. And there are links here where people can get more information and sign up for these fairs or these competitions. The first one around the virtual money fair. And the second one here is around, it's called the World of Choices. It's a mentorship program aimed to support students in their journey to explore and refine their career goals. So there's a link and more information for your review. Finally, under careers there, it's just called GABC TechWorks on March 2nd and May 12th. And they'll be providing sort of information and exposure to students for their career opportunities. Moving on to operations and HR. As is expected, we sometimes get questions from the public in terms of the provincial guidelines as well as the cleaning products and protocols that we use in the district. And so I'm just going to sort of respond to those questions with some of the things that we're doing. So first of all of our what we call SDS sheets, which are sheets which lay out the chemical composition and all of the sort of warnings to do with the label of that chemical. So all SDS sheets for the cleaning products we've used have been reviewed and are approved by both WorkSafe BC and Health Canada. For all products and processes, SD60 consults with provincial leaders and other districts to ensure that we are in compliance with industry standards. While WorkSafe BC exists for the protection of employees, the Ministry of Education and the Public Health Office guidelines are for the protection of students as well. So there are a number of different organizations and legal processes that protect students as well as staff. Personal hygiene, starting with hand washing, is part of the COVID-19 guidelines across the district and the province. And when any student health issue arises at school, whether it's about COVID or not, parents are notified and they take the lead with any subsequent steps and decisions. And in case of emergency, of course, we call 911. Any sort of questions or issues around workplace conduct of employees is covered by a couple of different policies. Policy number 2006 under discrimination, bullying, assault, and harassment, which covers, talks about both students and employees. Policy 4018, which is specifically for staff and of course for teachers, we have what's called the professional standards for BC educators in terms of making sure that our employees are interacting in ways that are respectful and appropriate with the public and with colleagues. Moving on, there was a question from trustees around in fact, this board has done a lot of advocacy work around recruitment and retention and the teacher regulation branch. And starting last year, they, I think as a response to that advocacy, began what they're calling the Enhancement Project for Teacher Certification. As you heard, I think in previous reports, they did add more personnel and those sorts of things, but they're also trying to streamline their process and their website and the information that's presented to public. So you can read there a bit more about what specifically they're doing for these enhancements, as well as there's a link here to the site itself. As you know, SD60 has already started in earnest our recruitment and retention process. In fact, the superintendent was in a career fair all day today for the University of Alberta, taking questions in English and French in terms of interested students for the positions that we currently have posted. I'm very pleased to announce, it's very early days, but we were able to secure a new Secretary Treasurer for School District 60. The effective start date and transition plan will come out in future meetings, but we're very pleased with this announcement. And I'll also take this opportunity. Well, first of all, the successful applicant was Angela Telford, and so she'll be moving into that position in the near future. But I'll also take this opportunity to thank publicly the support that we've been receiving from Terry Stoneman, retired Secretary Treasurer, who has been consulting and working with the district for a number of months now and helped us through this most recent process. Under Truth and Reconciliation, I encourage the public and trustees to read our background number 8 on, it's called Indian Reserves because it refers to the Indian Act. That's the actual name of it. And you can find some background information about how the reserves were created in the first place. And finally, trustees and the public can review some of the celebratory events, images, pictures, programs, videos from around the district. Central School here is Sophie Zaldi, grade 6. I believe it was already profiled in the Alaska Highway News, and so congratulations there. Ann Roberts Young Christmas Concert, the virtual one, and very happy to record here some of the district Christmas concerts that happened at the end of 2020 through our band program. And finally, weren't we lucky in our district to catch sight of Santa Claus, who was not only distributing a hamper to the Women's Resource Center, but also gathering up cards that were made by Baldonnel students and delivering them to the Peace Villa, North Peace Senior Housing, and Abbeyfield. So we were glad to catch a glimpse of that. That's my report, and I respectfully submit it.
We'll go through the report section by section to see if there's any questions or discussion.
I'll move the report.
I'll second it.
Oh, I thought I'd done that. Thank you. Check mark there.
Moved by Ida, seconded by Aaron.
Aaron, thank you.
You bet.
Right. And now we'll go through the report section by section and see what questions there are. One of the things I wondered on that section, Stephen, there are a few of the pieces that they're little pieces that there isn't a link out to say what they are.
Mm. So I'll follow up, and it might be that it was small that we didn't.
It didn't capture.
Yeah. But we'll definitely keep you posted. But essentially, it's either staffing, supplies, Pro D, travel, and that can take different forms and different people.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
All right. Reminder that we do have an NID day on the copy. Now, I had a question related to that because one of those workshops we go with some of my preschool stuff. Mm. Are they on BC time or are they on our time when they're advertised for our district?
You've got me.
Okay.
You've got me.
Yeah, it's the next one. There's one on oral language development.
Let me just,
I couldn't tell. So just in case somebody from the public was watching this and wanted to attend, that becomes an important thing to know.
Indeed. I'm going to assume.
I assume Pacific Standard Time.
Me too.
So.
Yeah, me too.
But that's just one of the things right now that we have to pay attention to. Right. Community link funding. I think there was a question that came up with one of our DPAC, SUPAC meetings related to
Mhm.
this particular fund. And I know we did a lot of work in March through June last year related to food insecurity. The education minister has said this is something that the ministry is seriously looking at in the next few months in terms of addressing food insecurity. So I know pockets of what we're doing, but I think it would be really important at some point to have a district picture of all of the initiatives. So if there's more money and things put up, and not everything is done through community links. So I don't know if we have a way of capturing that, but with some of the conversation that we're hearing about what's coming down the pipe, that would be good to know at some point. Yeah.
I just have a question about this funding. So, do the schools get their own sort of community link funding, or is this the district that was, because Central just sent out a notice for parents to take a dialectical behavioral therapy program so that they can then help their kids with emotional regulation. And so, yeah, I'm just wondering if that's part of this link funding, or if that's, because I didn't see, you know, if it was a PAC funded, or it might have said on the poster, but
Yeah. The funds are sort of strategically allocated in the district based on need. For example, a big portion of it goes to staffing at the high school for their alternate ed programs. A portion of it goes to support some of the alternate ed and behavior programs that Dr. Kearney and Bert Bowes. The question that came from DPAC was, well, what information do we use in terms of where are the highest examples of vulnerability and need? And we're provided with information from a number of sources that let us know what the nature is for things like the number of families on social assistance, the number of kids who are needing free meals in a day. So we track that, but essentially it has confirmed, for example, that we have about 4 inner city schools that we regularly provide additional funding to based on the high level of the vulnerability index for that particular catchment area. And so as Chair Gilbert has said, there's a number of different ways these are spent, but I've just listed here the primary ways in which they're allocated.
so this is a district
District
programs,
specific.
not necessarily schools. They can do their own thing, but this is.
Many schools do far more than we'd ever be able to have, just like we saw with the leading up to Christmas, with the number of activities going on. There are things that we would never be able to capture at all, but this is very strategic for those families and schools who really need extra support.
And I think that if we go back to that, you gave us a breakdown by school that showed who got what community links funding earlier.
Yes.
So we have had that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just wanted to discern the difference between, you know, school funded things for social emotional learning versus the community funded.
Yeah.
You know,
They're all together.
Yeah.
People do lots of different things. Any other?
Well, just the Christmas cards thing. I thought it was, I watched a bit of it, it was really interesting, the highlighting the United Nations and how Canada's a part of that, and, you know, what we do overseas. Still in our peacekeeping role that I think just kind of been quiet a little bit over the last few years, but it was, you know, quite very previously on our peacekeeping role with the United Nations. So I thought that was really.
I thought it was a really neat thing to show the kids the impact of a card, because there was so many cards and letters that went out before Christmas, and a lot of them you have no idea how they landed and were received, but even getting that information back, it made every one of those things done more meaningful for the kids. So
So I just have a question to the career.
Yeah.
Is that maybe more readily available because of going more virtual?
Yeah, well, certainly the way that they're organizing it would make sense for that. And they probably were unable to carry out some of their in-person activities, and they're finding different ways to make some of this funding and information available for sure.
So ultimately, really, when you think about it, I would say a C60 could benefit, right? Because a lot of times, I mean, we couldn't send kids, and I mean, due to COVID, they could actually attend.
Absolutely. Often with these things, it depends on the pickup and the interest, both in the schools and with families at home. And so opportunity provided is not always opportunity taken. So sometimes it's how and Mr. Campbell does help in terms of making sure that all schools are involved in something. And these are additional opportunities that are out there.
The list of topics in the Talk with Our Kids About Money was pretty good.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
I can see myself using it.
And often a very popular topic with public around, how can we provide more information and education in that regard.
Karen? The World of Choices, is that Junior Achievers BC, or what does JA stand for? I know Junior Achievers was something that I did like back in grade 10, but.
I looked and I never figured it out.
I looked too.
Yeah.
They don't list their, I just saw their acronym.
So it's just,
I couldn't read it. Otherwise.
yeah.
We'll track that down for you.
Well, I can do that.
Yeah, true. Any questions on operations, HR?
No. Yeah, there's it's just pretty much a summary of where.
The TRV stuff,
Yes.
will we be looking for feedback from payroll, the teachers union, like who to see if it's getting better? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think similar to what they provided here, our HR department is able to capture that because they get all the questions from teachers and they meet with the unions.
Yeah.
So we can kind of bring this back once we've gone through a cycle here of hiring and that bring it back to the board as to whether or not it has improved.
I mean, myself, I would like to not just rely on the TRV to say, yes, it's getting better.
Agreed.
No offense, but. I mean,
No, and our HR manager is well placed to be able to report that. It won't be in the next month or two though, because we're just started a new cycle. And so we'll start to see how effective any of these enhancements have been by the fall.
We'll speak to that in BCSTA. Stephen already mentioned what concerns me is this isn't the first time that there's been money and supposed to have been improvements. So the follow-up to make sure that what is intended to provide better service actually provides better services.
Agreed. Last couple of pieces there, so
All right.
thank you.
There are no further questions related to Stephen's report. Can I call the question? Thank you, mover and seconder. All in favor? Moving on to our secretary.
I'm sorry, was Nicole asking a question?
Sorry, Nicole. Right, moving on to our secretary treasurer's report, page number 14.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 1 on my report this evening is a copy of the operating budget consultation for 21-22. This is the final version. I did not get any other feedback regarding our dates or timelines. So this will be the process that we will follow for the upcoming budget consultation. And you can see that it kicks off March 15th with the announcement from the Ministry of Education regarding our funding. Item number 2 on my report this evening is a copy of the statement of financial information, otherwise known as the SOFI report. This is for the board's information. It will be now published on our website, as is required by the Financial Information Act. So this is for your records in the event that any questions are forthcoming. Board chair has already signed and we have submitted it to the ministry prior to December 31st, for which it was due. The next item I have on my report this evening is a update for the board regarding the Ministry of Education's funding. Now that we have received the new financial estimates, no longer estimates, actually the actuals from the Ministry of Education. So you can see I've provided you with the provincial grants. You'll see that we'll be receiving 65.7 million versus the preliminary, which was 67.5. The change is approximately 1.8 million. I have noted in blue in the center that we are now looking at LEAs. So we need to know that the Ministry of Education will recover part of that funding, and then we look to bill the LEAs with our First Nations bands, and they pay us directly now. So that's a change with the Ministry of Education, and we are estimating that it's about 927,000, although we have to wait for a second count that will take place in February for the nominal roll, and the numbers will finalize at that time, but know that your recovery and the billing to the LEAs will be the same. Pay equity is scheduled to come in the same, as is the funding for graduated adults. Transportation supplement, you can see that we've received a little additional funding in the way of support staff benefits grants. Teacher labor settlement is coming in at the same. We have received new funding related to early career mentorship funding in the amount of 125,000. And we will continue to receive FSA funding. And we also will receive early learning framework dollars for 1,680. Total operating revenue is just over 68 million for the upcoming year. And overall, the change to the district is 1.6 million, approximately 2.3% decline. I've added for the board's information the FTE that go along with that funding so that you can put it in perspective. So school aged for our amended has come in at 62.49. And we had estimated that we would be at 64.24. So there's a change in school aged of 174, representing approximately 2.7% change. In our adults, we're estimating 16.5. We are down approximately 8.5 from what we had estimated. And we have a small number in the other category, 1.25 FTE. Likely this is due to COVID and changing some of our scenarios. But our bottom line is 6,267 FTE versus an estimate of 64.63. We are down 196 FTE, or approximately 3%. And lastly, on my report is a information sheet regarding the most recent project and Roberts Young Elementary School. And I've provided a summary of that school's capital project and the scope of the project. And that is my report. Thank you.
I don't think we have any items to pull out for motions. So I have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Aaron, seconded by David. Discussion, if we could go through each item on Terry's report and see what questions we have related to it. Erin?
The operating budget consultation, attachment, thanks for that work, Terry and everybody else that put into that. It's nice to see something finalized and actually visualize it, when it's going to happen and the process. And this is, I think, will be the first year we've formally done the process, and so I think it'll be exciting, and I'm looking forward to being a part of it.
Thank you.
Other comments related to that part of the report? Okay. On to the next one, which I think this is Sophie one.
Correct.
It's a book.
I can do. It's a book every year.
It's a book every year. Okay. Great. Any other items related to the Secretary Treasurer's report?
Just on the ministry funding update, just curious about the nominal role students who aren't from even the province, whose bands are out of province, but they're nominal role students, so their status. Is the provincial government still funding those students?
So I'm sorry, I want to ask that question one more time. I'm not sure I heard.
The nominal role students that are declared status, that have status, but their home communities are not in British Columbia or not even within our district, so we wouldn't have LEAs for them. Is the province still funding for those students?
I am actually not sure whether we are or aren't. I don't think that we are receiving out of province for Alberta currently, and I think that was finalized last year if they were in Alberta, but I don't know that that's just purely nominal role students with the LEA. Right now, we are just being paid for by the LEAs that we hold.
Okay, so we don't know if we have any students that are nominal role students in our district, but their home communities are not.
What we do know for sure is that we are not funded, nor does any of our process involve anything other than the 3 bands for School District 60.
Okay, just curious.
Other students can be counted as that they self-declare as Indigenous as part of our regular education program and targeted funding for Indigenous students.
So they would just fall under the.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Stephen.
On the Ministry of Education funding update, the early career mentorship funding, is that what came out of the last provincial collective agreement? And we have to have PRNT involvement in use of that fund?
I would believe that it is, but I'm going to look to the superintendent to answer that question directly if I can.
I'm going to have to get back to you on that
I think that's what it is,
because I'm not.
And I believe that it is.
but I didn't ever hear what it was going to be called, just that there was a portion of money that was going to be allocated and you had to work with your local to develop a plan for it.
We'll get back to you on that one.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Right. There is not any other discussion related to the Secretary Treasurer's report. We'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. 9.0.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jerry. Reports of the regular committee of the whole meeting, January 11th, 2021. It's pages 15 and 16 in your agenda package. Could I please have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Madeline, seconded by Bill. Are there any errors or omissions in these minutes? Question, okay.
Operations here,
Mhm.
the flu shots.
Yeah.
That does concern me a little with our out-of-town schools. As the 101, Press for 2, Buick. Schools on Pathway. For those teachers. I'm wondering if we know if they came in to get them. Kind of thing.
It was attached in the report. There was some statistics.
Yeah, there were numbers, but just it didn't break it down at all.
Okay.
So I'm wondering if our out-of-town teachers were like, you know, that's an hour each way.
Probably didn't break
Yeah. I just don't want to put it in like a disadvantage on them, kind of thing.
So how do, should I
Yeah,
answer that?
go
How does
ahead.
that work?
I don't know because
This is from. a
this is
previous
from the
report.
previous meeting.
So questions would normally be at that time. I can certainly say that vaccinations and the flu shot, first of all, are not actually a responsibility of the school district. And, but we certainly, and are with our safety officer, are trying to find the right method of delivery. And, you know, we've come to what we think is a decent compromise in terms of access and cost, as well as the potential disruption that it causes in schools. And there are also other avenues for getting vaccinations in drugstores, in different public sites and through different organizations. And so that what was presented at the last meeting is the plan moving forward for next year.
Partly when the district first moved into immunization, there wasn't all of the other opportunities that there is now. I guess we could have looked at it under business arising. Calling the question, all in favor? We just did some business arising, but that's okay. All right. We're at 2.3 in our agenda, which is policy committee, and we'll turn it over to Trustee Evans.
Yeah, thank you, Leah, for the minutes of the policy committee meeting on January 18th at 11. I have not, no, Leah, I forgot because I wrote it down, but I didn't write it down in the book that I look at every single day. So I wrote it down. Leah, I will connect with you this week about some dates for the policy committee. The next one will probably be March, prior to spring break, and then we'll look at May again. But we do have a policy for the childcare policy coming up today for notice of motion, which is after this, and then the travel policy we looked at, and we also looked at, well, we didn't get a chance to look at bylaw 190, but we
That's the full bylaws of the board and how it operates.
right.
Thank you. No, I don't, but I did on that one.
So we will, the travel policy, I'm assuming will come back for the February 22nd board meeting agenda item. We talked about it, but there was a lot of questions around that, so we'll have an update that for notice of motion for February 22nd. Thank you for attending and Leah for taking.
So let's look at under policy adoption, policy 7017, that the Board of Education adopt policy 7017 related to video surveillance. We moved it at the last meeting. We need to I need to have a seconder of that tonight, and then we are able to vote on it.
Yeah.
Who would like to second that? Seconded by Bill. First, we're assuming that you didn't.
Leah would have captured that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So calling the question.
Oh, we should have a discussion.
Okay. Any discussion related to it?
Did anybody talk to transportation? Would add that on to buses?
Terry did.
I did speak with transportation, and I worked with transportation to develop some signage for our buses, informing of video surveillance. I also had an inquiry from North Peace regarding video surveillance and whether it included existing cameras or just new cameras. And I advised him that existing cameras were grandfathered and it only pertained to surveillance cameras go forward.
Thank you very much, Jerry.
You're welcome.
So I second that one, just feel a bit diverse.
Madeline's going to second the motion, Leah, because Bill was our initial mover.
Okay.
Well, Madeline just did it.
Yes.
Now we'll call the question. All in favor? Policy 800.1.
Yeah, so this is budget development, monitoring and reporting. The reference to this is the School Act. And as you can see, thank you, Terry, like I had mentioned earlier, for in your report, you had the framework and I guess the meeting timetable there for us. And yeah. There's that for approval. Was there any questions or
So
concerns?
you can actually read that out and
Oh, you want me to read it? I didn't read the last one.
that's okay. As long as somebody does.
The board shall honor before the prescribed date and in accordance with.
Sorry, my apologies. In the agenda, recommend that the Board of
Oh.
Education adopt.
It's like, what do you want me to read out? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, just,
So we recommend, it's recommended that the Board of Education adopt policy 8001.1, budget development, monitoring and reporting.
could I please have a seconder? Seconded by Bill. And we've had some discussion. Is there any further discussion related to the motion?
Just if, and if there's any public comments about it.
None. Terry?
Bill?
I received no feedback on this policy at all.
Okay,
Chair, point of clarification.
yeah,
And what the dates that Trustee Evans was referring to is a timeline that senior staff bring back each year.
Yeah.
That in itself is not the policy, just so we're clear on that. Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
No,
and
it's good.
I do need a different seconder. Aaron? All right, now we will call the question on that. All in favor? Confusing on that. Moving on to policy 7018, child care policy notice of motion. Do you want to speak to it, Aaron?
Sure. So this is going out as a notice of motion so that in our February board meeting, we can approve it through the same process that we just did for the previous two for public consultation. The policy is in reference to the School Act sections 85.1, 85.2, 85.3, and 85.4. That the board shall provide guidance with respect to how the board will promote the use of property for the provision of childcare programs between the hours of 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. on business days by either the board or third-party licensees. The use of board property by licensed childcare providers must not disrupt or otherwise interfere with the provision of educational activities, including early learning programs and extracurricular school activities. So we have some definitions there and then some guidelines and principles as well to go along with the notice of motion. So I will move that. And it's a recommendation that it goes forward for a notice of motion.
So Aaron has moved in the first capacity, I know that's not the right term. That
No, we don't have a seconder.
we don't need a seconder for this one right now.
But in a month. you
In a
can audit bill.
You can't. And you'll remember on this one, we were waiting and we modeled our policy that we developed on the one that has been put out by the BCSTA and did make some changes to have things aligned with more of our format. So,
Excuse me, Chair. Leah, did you catch that Aaron had moved that?
Mhm.
Question about this, please? I had brought up, I think 2 or 3 meetings ago, about if we could extend from 7 to 8 hours to EAs that were going to work as childcare workers, also kind of thing. Is that possible, or is it union no, or?
It's outside of the contract, but I think we would have to go back to the union and talk.
Terry, you want to speak to that, or?
Terry, are you able to speak to that?
I can. We have not looked at extending hours. What we have tried to do is add to existing hours if EAs have any space available in their day. Maximum hours for these for the EAs is 7 hours, I believe, in a day. So that's a maximum work schedule for them. We are trying to accommodate those that are already working in the schools to see if we can top them up first. But we do need to make sure we have full coverage for the before and after school care. May not work with all schedules.
So I know it's not a big difference, but currently there's a position posted for 4 hours. Right? And so anybody with 3 hours and under can only apply. Kind of thing. Right? So is it going to open up? I don't know how many more people open up if it was 4 hours and under kind of thing. You know what I mean?
If the posting was under 4 hours?
If the childcare position is 4 hours, the EA can only, if they take it, they can only work as an EA for 3 hours a day.
Oh, I see.
So staff is working on a site-by-site basis, starting with Duncan Cran in terms of, for example, in one particular school, all of the EAs are fully deployed. So there's been some research already into who is out there at each location, and then the decision made on how many hours they post. So all of that is being taken into consideration, including things like split shifts and everything else. But we're doing it on a site-by-site basis in terms of checking to see how much support staff is already deployed and for how many hours before they post the hours that they then need.
Thank you.
You bet.
Right. Right, moving on to other reports. We'll start with Erin.
Yeah, so the school district 60, we had a couple motions for last year's AGM. The AGM was canceled due to COVID, so they were brought to the October, was it in October? I think so, the October provincial council meeting. Those motions are attached. It was the additional support for letters of permission, teachers and non-certified teachers teaching on call. And the motion was carried. The action is that the board of directors is bringing the request forward to the new Minister of Education December 2020 in writing and face-to-face, and BCPC will also be informed that there's no further follow-up from that. And then the second one was the timely response from the TRB. And as we heard in our superintendent's report, there's some extra funding that went to the TRB, and we will wait and see. And the request also went to the executive director of the TRB as well as the BC Teachers Council and the Minister of Education in December.
And I think the piece we hadn't brought back was that outcome piece. And it wasn't until I was looking related to assessment that I saw the outcome piece there. And then Bill brought up the TRB at another meeting, and we directed Terry to write a letter. She wrote the letter, then I saw this, and basically the letter outlined what we'd already put into our motion, and thank you, but it sort of seemed redundant. So what I think, if I've understood where we're all at, this is wonderful that there's this TRB enhancement project that Stephen mentioned in his report, but one, we need to make sure that the enhancement project does what it was intended to do and not keep the pressure on and not back off. So when we did our advocacy related to this, we did do a reach out to, we've been in touch with the regional district, we brought it up at the NIB. So the concept that there now is the TRB enhancement could be a bouquet at the NIB meeting. And I'll move into that in a minute. But the other thing is, at this point, we never did send a letter to either the executive director of the TRB or the BC Teachers Council. So it would be, if you felt that it would keep some pressure on, a letter to say, we're very glad that there was, the need was identified for improved processes in the TRB. We're looking forward to seeing the results of that, or we just leave it and come back when we see what's going on.
I think we should leave it because we're not, we're not the only district that has issues with the TRB, it's across the province. And so I think that we should leave it and see what happens. I think we need to give them a fair shake. They've gotten funding, and I think we should allow them to do their work and follow up, at that other cycle, and see, and then bring it back again. I don't think it can't come back as a motion again for a couple of years, but that doesn't preclude us from talking about it again at a BCSTA event.
You're right, I agree with Aaron. I think we should leave it for a bit, a limited amount of time. Let's not leave it for 3 or 4 years kind of thing, because this has been an ongoing process that quite honestly could have been a problem when you first started teaching on it.
Different process, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
It's been a long process, and we have to try to get rid of it.
But we have to give them time.
Yeah, we do have to give them
A
time.
limited.
Sure.
Yep.
Can I just suggest then that in the cycle of employment for a school district that, Leah, we diarize, maybe in a committee report, bringing in some of the HR leadership in the fall, maybe the October or committee or board meeting, to summarize how the cycle went and what kinds of improvements, if any, we've seen in the process.
Thank you.
You bet.
And we can, in our MLA meeting that we'll have in the spring, let them know. And the other person that I will connect with on this is Brad Spurling, who was actually going to talk to the minister about that motion.
And I think if it doesn't get better, I think you're going to hear from a lot of districts that it's not better.
Yeah.
So
watch, wait, and see. Right. Anything further related to that? Okay. Under BCSTA, I sent out, and it was attached, the concept of preparations for the NIB meeting. You should have received a link today to register for it. It's a 2-second job, and once you register, you get a link to be able to sign up for the meeting. We know that Stephen's going to be working on this dissertation. I don't know if there's a desire to have district staff have Terry on as part of it, or if people are good to go. The other thing is, depending on how many of us that are choosing to attend NIB, there would be the possibility of getting into the boardroom and meeting as a group. I need some direction as to how people would like to do that, whether you just want to do it individually or try and come together.
I'm unable to attend.
Okay, Erin's not attending. Any feedback from the other people that are choosing to attend?
I registered today and I'm willing to go either way.
Okay, I can go either way as well.
I can go either way as well. I do prefer getting together.
Yeah.
That's just a preference, but I can go either way.
I'd have to register, and I'd rather.
David and Nicole?
I haven't registered yet, but I planned on attending, but I'll likely just do it from home.
David? You're on mute, David.
I will be doing it remotely as well.
Okay, so level of interest, it means getting somebody to come and let us in to do it here. It's not a problem.
We'll figure that out.
What's the will?
And when I noticed when we did the last one, you and Bill were here. And I was wishing I was here because they had some side conversations.
Yeah.
So If the four of us come here, it would be.
It would be nice now.
Yeah.
How do we need to, that's not the right word. Would we like to have district staff participation? We've noticed there's some school districts that don't have any. There's some school districts that always have. So it.
In the past, district staff have always gone down to Prince George for that IB.
Yeah, I just can't this Saturday.
Yeah.
We'll
I have
figure
Zoom
out how-
meetings.
We'll figure out how to get into the board.
Oh, I can help you with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Terry's been so busy that we got her
So Terry,
She's been so
I'm
busy,
hearing
reminder,
that
relaxing.
the concept is there of your attendance being up to you. Okay. So in the end,
So you're muted, Terry.
I can attend remotely.
thank you. So I
Sorry,
sent,
Terry, what time, so I know, what time would you like to get in? What time would you like to have access to the building on Saturday?
I'll have to go back and look
Okay,
at
you'll let me know.
yeah, you and I can work
We
that
gotta
out.
make sure we get time.
Yeah, I know, I think
It's not Pacific.
We were off by
it's
an hour
9
last time.
Pacific. We were off by an hour last time, yes. Bill, we were so early. Not what I'm known for.
And you said you sent an email out today?
No, the
It's from
email
Matt.
came today
It's
from
from
Matt
Matt
Taylor from
Okay,
the
okay, then I see
BCSTA.
it, okay, yep,
You should have got it.
yep, I got it.
And I did forward it to Leah so that she can register Terry because I didn't know if the invitation from Matt went to district staff or not. So in the agenda package for it, they've noted who the MLAs are that are attending, that they have, they would like our feedback on topics for discussion with the MLAs. And they also wanted what they call bouquets or roses. So potentially we could add a bouquet of the TRB enhancement project. Then some of the issues that have been brought forward by another district include Ministry of Health, the transparency and timely reporting with regard to COVID. There's public safety this is particularly from Fort Nelson. One of the other topics that I haven't put forward because I wanted your feedback on would be recovery from COVID. Would be what I see as a topic. In an earlier email, I had sent out what we talked about last year. I'm just wondering if we have any other topics to add to that section for questions with the MLAs.
So you added on the COVID recovery?
I'm gonna add the COVID recovery. I'll just put a note.
Do you guys remember just at the last committee of the whole meeting, we spoke about something that was an advocacy issue and we noted that we should speak to the MLAs about it next time. This is all.
Wait times.
What?
Yes, wait times for assessments.
That was it.
Yeah, I didn't send anything forward without checking with you guys tonight was my plan. Anything else that we might want to talk about? We'll let them know we're doing that for advocacy. The paper that we looked at last time on the case for increased school life cycle funding, I captured what we had said at the board meeting and added a few points. I'm speaking to this at the NIB because I brought it forward to Gloria. So I put those points down there and I will be forwarding those points to BCSTA, just giving you a chance though to see if there's any further thoughts related to it. I took the essence of what was said at the committee of the whole and there's some rewording. Okay, the one point that I might go in and add is that if you actually think about a life cycle plan for a building, if I was a brand new trustee coming in and somebody said, when we do our budgeting, it's based on a life cycle of a building, and here is what a life cycle of a building is, that might be educational for us to kind of know. When an HVAC and when you might look at a roof and things like that.
And
So,
what is HVAC?
so that would be the only other point I could see perhaps adding that might be okay. And then I sent you one of the things that there'll be no opportunity for anybody to ding dong us this time because Gloria is asking for the chair reports to go in writing ahead of time, and she'll be submitting them as part of the package. So those were my point form notes that I'm attaching there.
So nobody's gonna time you?
Nobody's going to time it, no. Is there anything that as a district you would like to be captured in that chair report that I have not captured at this point in time?
So even though this report goes in ahead of time, it's in the package, you still get to speak to it?
I don't think so at the Zoom one. I think they're really worried about their timing because if you think about our NIB meetings in person before they've been the full day, so Gloria's asked for them to come ahead of time.
You have in here looking for secretary treasurer, you can probably.
I can change that,
to
yeah.
hired a
I can
secretary
hire
treasurer.
secretary treasurer. The other question that I haven't put there is that this will be where there are elections for positions on the NIB. And so if you are interested in any of those positions, it would be a good thing to share with us so that you can get your local trustees' support before looking at for regional support at the NIB.
You know, run for chair, Paul?
Maybe might be nice, but we kind of had a process on that already. Okay. So Michelle got locked out and is watching the live stream. So, so we'll reach out to her and see if she can join us to do her report. So for the people on the live stream, every time I look at my phone, I'm not looking at anything except messages that are going back and forth about the meeting. The custodian locked the door.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the locked out was.
I was locked out too when I came here and I got here to South Dakota.
Okay, so we're trying to jump ahead and rectify and having Michelle. So hopefully Michelle's excited about hearing all the TRB stuff that we've talked about. Right, Provincial Council.
So I'm not prepared to do the review. I was thinking that it was gonna be at the committee of the whole meeting.
Okay,
February, so.
we don't get them to review, but I think we put it on there in case you were thinking that we might want to do some motion preparation.
I thought we would do that on the
Okay,
committee of the whole meeting.
So there's
I probably just miscommunication there, but.
okay,
Yeah, no, we can save that for the February committee of the whole meeting.
all right. And 10.2 BCPC.
The only report I have is that we have our AGM virtual on the 28th, and there's 2 positions for directors, and there's 2 nominations so far, and there's 2 resolutions to go through. And that's my report.
Thank you very much, Ida. All right. There has been, moving on to 11.0 correspondence. In your packages, you got copies of the responses to date to the advocacy letters that we sent out related to technology and internet access for rural, remote and just basically improved access. I'm wondering is, as we look at the letters that have come back to us, if there's anything that we want to, if there's any action related to what's come back to us that we need to follow up on. And I think, Terry, you were going to check with our own staff about this.
I followed up regarding the, I'm trying to think what the name of the group is. I think they were out of Hudson Hope. And we do have staff, Jared Bell is following up with it.
Okay.
And he was going to get me an update, but I'm sorry, I don't have anything tonight.
Okay, that's fine. There was a lot of letters that were sent out. I can't remember the total, but the fact that we're getting,
Anyway?
yeah. And I took the opportunity at the partner meeting to say, I dropped off twice. This is why we need better connection in the north. So yeah.
Just on that, the District of Taylor.
Yeah.
They just outlined what the Peace River Regional District did.
Yeah.
And they just kind of suggest that we get together with them to, because they must have done an assessment.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one.
And I thought that would be actually good to see. I'm just saying it is suggested that School District 60 connect with the PRD to inquire about joining the fiber working group that they look at.
Hudson Hope mentions them too.
Yeah. Can I, because I think we do have a meeting coming up with the Peace River Regional District. Do
We haven't
not?
set any of those partnership meetings up until we see where we're at with the COVID restrictions.
Oh, okay, because that would be a good thing to put on the agenda for those.
Yeah.
And, Terry, just forgive me, Terry, but I think I heard you say that Jared Bell is going to be connecting with Hudson's Hope and this fiber optic working group.
He has already connected with them. I just didn't get an update from him. Yes.
Well, hopefully, maybe he can get a copy of the report for us.
The needs assessment.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see. Right, so we'll wait till we hear back from Jared, but that report we're all agreeing would be something that's good to have, and have Jared's feedback on it would also be good.
Well, it would be good for a lot of reasons, and it would be good to have that needs assessment as a district, but also, so I don't know how big it is, if it goes up into the south, if it goes down to the south piece and then up into Northern Rockies, but if it does and it covers the whole region, the whole Northeast region, it would be great for the three boards even to do something, and that might be looking at, I'd have to look at the history of the motions for the AGM for BCSTA, but depending on, where that is. I know a couple of years ago, we talked about connectivity at the AGM, but I'm not quite sure what the motion looked like, so I'd have to go back and do some research, but it might be something for us to consider, and those motions are due soon, February. I think.
Yeah, that's.
So, I will commit to looking at that and checking, making sure that we can meet the motion deadline and just doing some research.
Because I think when we talk about the topic of COVID recovery, and that what's being talked about there is, we've certainly shown that we need to have the supports in place to move to remote learning, and to continue with some of the things that we've learned and where some of the improvements are. What's very clear is it becomes an equity issue, and COVID has certainly exposed some equity issues that we weren't necessarily aware of before. One iPad or one device, and you've got 8 kids in some families up the highway trying to do their lessons on one device.
And they're using a satellite.
Yeah. So, all right, so further work to do there on that. I got a letter from Margaret Little. There's the one that I included here, and then there was another follow-up from the Save Our Northern Seniors, really wanting some support to make sure that people are aware of the opportunities in the field to support seniors and to trying to get enough people to take the program that Northern Lights is willing to offer. After this email, I got a copy of another one that came to both myself and Brian Campbell. And Brian Campbell is going to meet with Margaret and do some of the legwork in here around expanding district awareness of it. I don't know that there's anything further that we can do as a board other than keep it in mind in our dealings with. We know we've got staff that have said they'll take it on.
I can say in the public meeting, Northern Lights College does offer a 2-year Associate of Arts degree to prepare. It's for, I can't remember the specific name of it, but it's one of the Associate of Arts degrees that they can take, and it's to meet all the 60 credit requirements to apply for the Bachelor's of Science in Nursing program that UNBC is bringing up here. And so, so that's one program that's new. And then as well as the Social Services Worker Diploma program, the students are able to meet most of the 60 credits. They have to take a couple of science courses as well to meet all of the prereq requirements for the Bachelor's of Science in Nursing. So Northern Lights College has 2 diplomas that are students, and some of the courses also are dual credit courses for both of those diplomas for our students in our district.
Sure.
Yeah.
There might also be a governance role in the sense of meeting with stakeholders or
Yeah.
which sometimes has included Northern Lights College in the past in terms of, because they
That's
also
right.
they also have a responsibility in terms of UNBC or the Northern Lights College to connect with not only the school district, but how are they marketing this information? And we're certainly willing to support that, but there needs to be that connection there as well.
And
So
we had
they requested a meeting with us and we turned it down.
No, we had it set up for June. I'd done all the legwork,
okay.
then COVID hit. So when we get to see where this next round is and where we're at, we have a number of those
So that
kinds
can
of
maintain the
partnerships
connection there too.
that could be part of that connection
Actually,
as well.
set up twice.
Okay.
So add to my notes of what we need to do.
But we are doing stuff like
We are
there's,
doing
the
stuff,
dual
yeah.
credit, and Brian, I can say, is excellent at that, at letting the students know about the courses they can take that can look towards both of these diplomas.
As are each of our secondary
Yeah.
schools in terms of
Very good,
the
yes.
programs.
I had to remind Margaret that there was secondary schools beyond North Peace.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, this kind of care is needed in all of our communities. So, but it was fun to tease her, put it that way. So the other thing that's included in your package, it came to us from the City of Fort St. John as correspondence, and it is the Social and Economic Development Framework of Fort St. John. It came just before Margaret's email came. And I have read through it. It's huge. The school district is referenced in here a number of times. It could become a document that forms part of our strategic plan, but the listing of what and where we should be involved that arose in this document has arisen, but it's not necessarily anything that we've agreed to at this point. So what I'd like to do is request someone make a motion to have our staff review the report and bring back ways we can and should respond as a district to some of the things in here. And as I say, some of the stuff that's in here will help us with our strategic planning. But it also, as Nicole reminds me, keep track of it, because this would be certainly something that when we get our meeting going with the city, we need to talk about.
Yeah, it concerns me a little bit that there's stuff in there that they've committed us to without talking to us.
Well, they've said they would like to do it, but in it
In
is,
the public perception is that, we're now doing it, right? And so I would make the motion that we look at it and have a recommendation.
That happens not just with the city so often. when they tried to build, was a station, they had a proposed school site on there. On where they were selling the properties.
Right, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, that was the developer that.
Yeah.
That motion.
You know, never came to us at all and said, hey, it's a
What do you
possible.
want?
You want a motion or
I-
just?
what-
leave this?
Where I see this fitting is I just want to be a little bit careful that it doesn't become a make-work project
No.
for staff that is part of something that we haven't even really engaged in or even brought to you, which is normally how it would work, as opposed to the city providing what would then be our next steps. However, I would suggest that this be incorporated into the strategic planning plan. In other words, something we review and come back to in terms of what is it that the community is looking for, and kind of formalize that in our planning. Because that's going to start to happen sooner than later in terms of laying out the timelines and plan for that community outreach.
It's nice to know what the community needs, but you know, it's kind of as that double-edged sword, right? It's nice to know what they need, but it would have been nicer, you know, before it was
Well,
printed.
this board needs to also reach out.
Yes.
And so that kind of process, like, this is not going to take the place of the
Our reach out.
consultation with your
No.
stakeholders.
It's
No,
not.
It's just one, it's a nice research document though that can inform the process.
I agree.
I just think that there's a lot of mentions of us in there, and I would like to know how you guys feel about that aspect of it. And then it certainly becomes something that we bring up in our meeting with the city. And then it does become good data for strategic planning where we can fit it in.
Superintendent would be happy to bring back some thoughts on where the school district is mentioned here and what that might mean down the road.
Yeah.
No problem.
I
I don't need a motion for that. I can just
Okay.
bring that back.
I just think that a look-see by somebody other than me.
Leah will note that as an action item, and I can bring that to our next
So an
meeting.
action item that Stephen's gonna take a look at this
Stephen or
document.
designate.
Stephen or designated, energizing our future to bring back to us for further discussion.
Is that line on everybody's, you know,
It'll probably be
offer
me.
right?
Yeah.
Anything as designated by your superior, right?
There you go. But it's good foundational. It's good.
Well, I think I'm hoping that some of those COVID restrictions are relaxed a little bit and that we could then get into having our meeting with the city. And this would be something that we could talk about in addition to some of the other things. But I don't want to be talking with other governance people about it and any commitment from the school district without your
Yeah.
piece.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Right, is there any other thoughts related to that before we move on? It's an interesting read, anyway.
What would have been nice?
Well, if we saw a draft to begin with, but that's not how it happened.
Yeah.
So we have no unfinished business, we have no new business. Is there any way of connecting Michelle for her report?
Just try to-
Just a minute. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was on mute and I'm not. She emailed back and said that she won't give a report. She'll just, she's been watching and she's having a hard time hearing it all. So just don't worry about her.
Great, so we don't have anything from the PRNTA. We have nobody representing CUPE or DPAC. Have there been any questions from the press or public during our meeting, Stephen?
There have not.
Great. We have no in-camera motions to be brought forward. So I need a mover and a seconder for adjournment. Moved by Aaron, seconded by Bill. All in